Good evening, afternoon or morning. Movie Cat is at the microphone and today I will tell you about an erotic drama, The Babysitters.
Come on, you're smart, you're mature, you're definitely unique.
Shirley is in her senior year. She has an evening part-time job that has gone a little further than planned. But Shirley is not ashamed. She believes that getting paid for oral sex is no more humiliating than for cooking burgers. But it's worth going back a few months. Shirley sits in class and is one of a few people who really tries to understand what the teacher is saying. The girl has an obsessive disorder, so at home in her room there is absolute order, and all things are in the right places, in her opinion. Her mother is only interested in whether Shirley had dinner, and the father completely ignores the daughter, buried in papers. Suddenly a doorbell sounds. It's Mike, who hires Shirley to babysit for the first time. Shirley, when meeting an adult man, is very embarrassed. Mike and his wife go to a restaurant for dinner with another couple. Mike's friend Jerry is about to open his own restaurant and offers Mike a deputy position in the future. On the way back, the wife tells Mike not to keep his head in the clouds, but to hold on to his place at the car dealership. Suddenly, Mike notices abandoned locomotives near the parking lot and invites his wife to go look at them. But she reacts without any interest and returns her husband to the car, saying that the children are not sleeping at home, so they have to go. Meanwhile, Shirley is trying to make good use of her time to finish her homework. But her obsessive disorder won't let her, and she washes the dishes and the floor in the kitchen. Suddenly married couple come back and finds her on the floor with a rag. Mike decides to take Shirley home, but along the way he realizes that the girl is hungry, so he stops at a cafe to have some meal. In a casual setting, Mike and Shirley learn that they have something in common. They are night owls and often do stupid things for no reason. Shirley talks about her desire for all objects to be symmetrical. After the cafe, Mike offers to show something interesting and brings Shirley to the same locomotives. The girl is delighted and they decide to even go inside one of them. There, Mike and Shirley kiss, but after a while they pull themselves back. Despite his apathetic wife, Mike values his family and does not want to ruin it. Mike drives the girl home and pays her $100 for her work. At their homes, Mike and Shirley individually reminisce about their little adventure, probably wishing they had gone further. The next evening, Shirley, who is having coffee with her friends, suddenly runs into Mike's family. His wife asks to babysit again in a few days. Now Mike and Shirley have no doubt having sex in the car after the girl sat with the children. Now Mike is paying Shirley $200 for work and, let's say, for a service. At home, Shirley puts the money together and writes the word "trouble" on the top bill with a marker. In class in the morning, Shirley feels the need to share everything that's going on with her best friend Melissa, who has begun to understand sex life earlier and therefore is happy for Shirley, and $200 is good money. At the same moment, Mike, in order to somehow relieve his conscience, tells everything to his friend Jerry. However, Mike is sure that a friend will not be able to understand him until he himself is in such a situation. Jerry doesn't mind at all. In the evening, Mike calls Shirley asking if she has any acquaintances who could be a babysitter for his friend Jerry. He will pay well. A couple of days later, Jerry gives Melissa a ride home and tries to turn the conversation in the right direction. But this is not required, because the girl knows very well what to do. Meanwhile, Shirley is waiting for her friend in a cafe, worrying about how everything was done. Melissa arrives. She is very excited but satisfied. Shirley asks, since she tripled everything, could she get some of the money, let's say $40. Melissa easily agrees. After that, the girls go to the party. Instead of having fun, Shirley sits down to drink beer on a step, because she is not happy that two of Jerry's friends already called her, asking to find a babysitter. Melissa reassures her friend, because they are minors and they are not threatened with prison. Meantime, the problems of lustful men and their families are the problems of lustful men and their families. Jerry and his two friends want Thursday and the girls have to look for a third one. Later in the evening, Mike knocks on Shirley's window and sneaks in. They are lying in bed, chatting about this and that, when suddenly the girl's father enters in search of a band-aid. Mike barely manages to hide under the bed. Father automatically asks how Shirley is doing and leaves. At the same moment, the third girl, Brenda, is given a ride by a man who for some reason stops in the middle of the forest. Shirley didn't tell her what to do next, for Brenda to make her own choice. When an adult plump man starts to climb on her, Brenda refuses. But then, when the frightened man begins to apologize, cry, compliment, Brenda takes pity on him and decides to agree for sex. Meanwhile, Mike calls Shirley and is very upset when he finds out that she is babysitting for another man today. Later in the evening, Brenda is angry at her friends for setting her up so blindly, but still agrees to work with them. Shirley draws up a schedule. The days go by and the business begins to flourish so much that stylish business cards are even printed. One evening, Mike and his wife go to dinner with his boss. There, he learns two things from his boss. Firstly, Mike does not work well because his sales figures are very low. And secondly, a babysitter also goes to the boss. Sometimes it is Shirley, sometimes other girls. Mike, of course, is jealous and tells Shirley about this. Is it really worth the money to have sex with all the men? Shirley recalls that it was Mike who paid her the first money for sex, and since girls are in such demand, from this very moment, the price rises to $300. Shirley's father almost catches their scene when he arrives from work. There are more and more orders for girls, and therefore Brenda decides to bring her sister Nadine into the business, seducing her with expensive things. In the morning at school, Shirley finds out that it was Nadine who worked yesterday, who does not really understand why she should pay 20% to Shirley. But, gritting her teeth, Nadine finally gives $60. Immediately after that, Shirley stops receiving orders and her schedule of planned work is almost empty. Nadine turned out to be as enterprising as Shirley and called all the men, promising them her girlfriends, who are better than were before. Shirley first asks Brenda to look for evidence that Nadine started her business. Brenda, of course, does not betray her sister, and then Shirley and Melissa decide to break into Nadine's locker. They call Mike to stand at the door. There is nothing in the locker, and so that Nadine does not understand that it was her locker that was broken into. The girls arrange a real mayhem throughout the school. In the morning, Shirley gathers Nadine and her friends and explains that they must work only through her and pay her 20% of the profits always. Shirley hopes that the school mayhem is proving the seriousness of her intentions. Everyone silently agrees. Melissa says they all need a vacation, working vacation. Under the pretext of a corporate trip to the woods, Mike and his friends gather at Jerry's hunting lodge for the weekend and invite all the girls there. They drink a lot, have sex and even try drugs. There, Brenda begins to feel acutely that such a life is not for her. After a couple of days, Brenda, right in the middle of the evening, leaves the children with whom she sat and runs home. In the morning, she tells Shirley that she can't do this anymore, to sleep with different elderly men, and then at home, stealthily wash everything off herself without her parents noticing. Shirley understands and lets her go, only asking her not to tell anyone about their business. Melissa does not agree with the decision to let Brenda go and, for reliability, asks a couple of men to beat and intimidate Brenda's brother. They say, "Tell your sister not to talk too much." A few days later, Mike is fired from his job, which he didn't really like anyway. For him, this is a chance to do something more interesting. But his wife does not share his views. She is upset that Mike didn't beg the boss to not dismiss him, and despite the fact that they do not keenly need money, the wife refuses to talk to Mike. Brenda and Nadine are angry that their brother was beaten. They decide to blow up Shirley's business by canceling their evenings at the last minute under false pretenses. Shirley is slowly losing her temper, and then Mike asks her to run away with him. Shirley refuses, because they can't just leave everyone who loves them and depends on them. Mike, who, besides Shirley, did not have sex with any of the babysitters, cannot put up with the fact that Shirley has sex with others, and with the fact that he has to pay her for conversations, empathy and love. He goes home. Shirley, on the other hand, calls Nadine and learns from her brother that she is sitting with someone's child, although she had previously refused the order. Realizing that Nadine is again doing business herself, Shirley calls Melissa and she asks to help Jerry. The three of them arrive at the place where Nadine usually serves clients. Jerry, with the words, "You'll owe me a lot for this," Shirley pulls Nadine out of the back seat and gives her to the girls' hands. They, to scare Nadine, hand her over the railing of the bridge when suddenly she slips out out, and at the last moment, Jerry barely manages to pull her out. Nadine's client crawls out of the car, slightly beaten by Jerry. Shirley sees her own father, disheveled, beaten, and he has absolutely nothing to say to his daughter. Shirley goes into hysterics. Nearby, Nadine cries and constantly repeats, "You have to blame yourself. You have to blame yourself." Months pass. Shirley drives up to Mike's house. Her t-shirt with a badge says she now earns in a more conventional way. The girl sees that Mike has established a relationship with his wife and looks happy. Shirley just nods at him and gets back in the car. She does not run from the past and she is not ashamed. For her, everything was just an unusual adventure in the usual routine. Thank you for your attention. Please subscribe if you also thought while watching, why hasn't a single wife, instead of husband, ever given a ride any babysitter home?